Well, hello, welcome again to reading of 2 Peter, and I got up to the beginning of chapter 2. This has, as is indicated here, this has overlaps with Jude, which I will record later on. So again, etot de kai pseudo prophetai en to lao, hos kai en humin, esontai pseudo didaskaloi. I'll just pause it there. So there were also false prophets, entolao, in the sense of among, so among the people, hos kai, as also there will be pseudodidaskaloi, false teachers among you. Hoitines, the very ones who, parais axusin, haireses apoleas kaiton agorasan ta autus despotein numenoi. So the very ones who, now this is para plus ace plus ago, who will perhaps introduce, literally will lead in beside. So we'll introduce haireses apoleas. This is a Hebraism here. It's literally heresies of destruction. Hebrew has a shortage of, it doesn't have a huge number of adjectives, and so it often describes things like destructive heresies, where we would use an adjective in English and Greek. It does it as heresies of destruction, so often rendered as destructive heresies. Hairesis, third declension feminine noun. It's from haireo, in the middle sense of to choose. So a heresy is a sort of chosen view, as opposed to an orthodox view, apparently. So, and kaiton agorasanta, and the one, those denying the one having bought, the master who bought them. So the very ones who introduce, we would say, destructive heresies, denying the master, this is Jesus, the one having bought them. Ep agontes hiautus takinein apolean, kai poloi, ex apoluthesus in auton tais aselgeis. Dihus hehodos tes aletheos blasphemethes setai, kai en pleonexia plastois logois humas emporuon rusontai, hois tokrima empalai uk age, kai he apolia auton u nostasde. So they are bringing, this is ep ago again, so bringing against themselves, bringing upon themselves swift destruction. And many will follow them in their, well, perhaps debaucheries, licentiousness. It's a funny word, aselgeia, so generally rendered as licentiousness or debaucheries, wickednesses. They through whom the way of truth will be blasphemed. This is a future passive here. Kai en pleonexia. The pleonexia is greed. It's from pleon, more, and the exia from echo, so to want more, to have more, and hence it's greed. So emporuanta, they will come among you, I think for the M, they will come among you with greed, or perhaps in their greed. So in their greed they will come amongst you. Plastois logos, connected with plastic, of course, means fabricated, from plasso, to mould. So with fabricated stories. And for them tokrema empalai. Empalai is an interesting word. It means from of old. It's a late Greek combination. It's just ek plus palai. It does occur in Philo. It's only in this author in the New Testament. So, so for whom their judgment is from of old, nor age, nor is it nullified, inoperative. Perhaps it's the alpha privative plus that erg root. So for whom their judgment from of old is not inoperative, and their destruction, u nustazda. It's a funny choice of word here. It means to doze, to be asleep. So their destruction has not fallen asleep, literally. Ega hotheos angelon hamatasanton uk ephesato. For if God, I get a genitive absolute here, so when the angels sinned, we get an aorist participle here. So if God, when the angels sinned, did not spare from Vedamai in the middle, so did not spare them, but serais sophu tetarosas paradoken es chrysenteru menus, kai akaioi cosmoi uk ephesato ala ogdoon noe, dikai sunes keroka ephulaxen cataclus mon cosmo asebon apaxas. I might just pause there. So, just for that earlier bit, we translated there. So, when the angels sinned, God did not spare them, but this is a very rare word. It's tartaro, literally. In fact, the word only occurs here. It means to consign them to Tartarus. Tartarus being the Greek version of Hades or Tartarus. It goes right back to Hesiod, place of gloom or darkness. So having consigned them to Tartarus. Now this is a difficult bit here, and there's a variant reading. Another reading of this one is Sirais, which means a pit. So to pits handed them, but to pits of darkness, literally pits of gloom. Seras, if we read that word here, then that connected with serah, meaning a bond, or piece of rope or chain. This is a word that turns up, you'll see it in the Septuagint in the story of Samson, where one of the things that's done to him to try and take away his strength is to bind him with these serai. So if it means bonds, it must mean something like in bonds of darkness. There is also a word seros, which would be masculine, which means an underground granary, so meaning like a pit or something, a pit of darkness. But anyway, I leave the commentators to debate the various readings here. So I'll just take this perhaps in bonds of in chains of darkness, having consigned them to Tartarus. He handed over them being held or being kept for judgment. So we get a passive participle here from Terio. So he handed them over, them being kept or being held for judgment. And he did not spare the Akaioi Cosmu, literally the ancient world, the old world. He did not spare the old world. So he's looking back here, I think, to the Old Testament. He did not spare the ancient world, but he guarded, perhaps he protected here, he kept guard over the herald of righteousness, Noah, as the eighth one, that is Noah and 7 others. So, but as an 8th man, a herald of righteousness, Noah, he kept guard over or protected. Ep Axas, having brought, this is Ep plus Ago, so having brought against the world a cataclysm, against the world of the impious. This is a genitive here, not a participle, I think. So having brought against the world of impious people a cataclysmon, you get our word cataclysm, of course, so a deluge. Kai poles Sodomon, Kai Gomorrhas Tephrosas, and then in brackets catastrophe, cat ekrinen hypodegma melonton asebesin tethekos. Kai dikaion lot kataponumenon hypotes ton athesmon in aselgeia anastrophes erusaton. And the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, Tephrosas is a participle. You get tephra, and the verb here is tephroo. It's an omicron contract verb, means to reduce to an ash, reduce to ashes. So having reduced to ashes the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, you get in brackets catastrophe by an overturning, if you want to read that. Krenen, he condemned, so he condemned them. So we get a participle. So he condemned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah by turning them to ash, by overturning. And tethekos is a perfect participle from tithemi. I don't think it's the usual spelling, but anyway, it is a perfect participle from tithemi. So having placed hypodegma, an example of the things coming against or to the impious. Kai Dikaion Lot, and Lot, now the main verb is down here, so he rescued or saved from Ruamai Lot, who was a just man, who was kataponumenon, perhaps oppressed or worn down by now the taste goes with the anastrophes, which we've had before, anastrophe by the way of living, by the conduct of the lawless ones, athesmon, in their depravity, the aselgeia. So to do that bit again, so he rescued or kept safe just Lot, who was just, Lot, who was oppressed by the way of life, by the conduct of the lawless ones, alpha privated plus thesmos, the lawless ones in their depravity. Blematiga kai akoe hodikaios, en katoikon, en autois, hemeran ex hemeras psuken dikaion, anomois argois basanisden. For the righteous man dwelling among them, blemati connected with blepo, this is a third declension abstract noun, it's by the things that he saw and by what he heard. So by the things which he saw and the things which he heard, the righteous man dwelling among them day after day, literally tortured his psyche, his soul. Perhaps he was torturing, or perhaps he was suffering in his soul by these lawless works. So a funny expression here, so to do that bit again. So the righteous man dwelling among them day after day, by what he saw and by what he heard, he was torturing or perhaps suffering in his soul in his righteous soul, I think I missed that before, in his righteous soul by the lawless deeds. Oiden kurios eusebes in perasmu ruesthai adicus de eis hemeran crucios kaladzomenus terrain malis de tus opisos sarkos en epithumia miasmu poruomenos kai kuriotetos kataphronuntas. But the Lord, and no article here, so this is Yahweh, presumably here, knew to rescue the pious ones from testing, from testing. And so he knew how to rescue the pious ones from the day of test, from temptation or test, but how to keep the unrighteous ones for the day of judgment, those being punished. So to keep, it's almost full punishment here. The unrighteous ones being punished, he knew how to keep, it's all after this verb oiden, how to keep for the day of judgment. Malista, especially those, now this is that Old Testament sense of peruomai, so conducting themselves, especially those conducting themselves, the tus goes with the participle, in the desire, and it's the goes, so literally it's again Hebraisms here, it's literally in the desire of polluted flesh. So we would say, especially those following in polluted desire of the flesh, and those despising authority. So just to do that again, so Yahweh knew, or oiden, he knows how to rescue the pious ones from temptation or from trial, but he knows how to keep the wicked ones being punished for the day of judgment, and especially those who conduct themselves, perhaps in the polluted desire, so taking that, this is a Hebraism again, it's in the desire for pollution, so in the polluted desire of their flesh, and those despising authority. And that's the first part of chapter 2.